So I was reading through the Bible today and just getting ready for the day, and I was thinking about the desert, and as Jesus was in the desert being tried and his temptations and stuff, and temptations I've had in my life, and going to a spiritual desert, if you will. So I'm gonna go ahead and start in Matthew chapter 4, verses 1. Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. After he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. Then the tempter approached him and said, "If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread." He answered, "It is written, man must not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God." So, a lot of times we find ourselves in a spiritual desert, if you will. Jesus is fasting in this desert. There is a stripping away to the holy that happens when we are in a desert, a spiritual desert. And that I find emotionally excruciating, and at the same time, I find it liberating and living. As all of our creature comforts right now are being torn away, a lot of times the bread, literal and figurative, the stimulus of the digital world and all that's in the city, our social life, hedonism, work, even a steady paycheck, when all that is stripped away, and it's in that desert, we realize just how in bondage we are in for our own happiness. In Christian spirituality, the name for these things that we are in bondage to for our unhappiness is called an unnecessary weight. It might not necessarily be a sin, but one of the commentators on a really good book on the Dark Night of the Soul, it states that God attacks our unnecessary weight that is not needed with love, and it's in that regardless of how a compulsion appears externally underneath, it's always robbing us of our freedom. We don't really think of it like that a lot of times, but it's robbing us of freedom. We act not because we have chosen to, but because we have to. We cling to things, people's beliefs, behaviors, not because we love them, but because we're terrified of losing them. And, the classic spiritual term for this compulsive condition is like an unneeded weight. It don't necessarily have to be a sin, but it's not a weight that you need. And each and every one of us has countless unneeded weights in us that keep us attached in our daily routines, our environments, our relationships. And of course, mostly and sadly, is our possessions hold us a lot. We are also attached to our religious beliefs and to our images of ourselves, others, and God. And in a spiritual sense, the objects, of our unneeded weight and addictions become idols. Because we give them our time. We give them our energy. We give them our attention. We give them what what we want to, or not even, and often, especially when we are struggling to rid them ourselves of them. We want to be free, compassionate, and happy, but, in the face of our unneeded weight, we are clinging and grasping and fairly self-absorbed. This is the very root of our troubles, really, the very root of this human condition. And this book reads of like 3 stages of purification, or a purging of sins, and then illumination, and then union. Purging gross sins like murder, rape, or violence, or theft. And purging conscious sins, which are considered sadly socially acceptable. Sins, but not the way of Jesus, which is like gluttony, premarital sex, or little white lies, for example. And then purging of unconscious sins, sins of omission, not commission. Sins like doing things to boost your ego, not just to glorify God and love, getting that pat on the back for yourself. Then there are sins where we put our trust in things that are not Jesus, a false idol in a sense. Now those sins are the most grievous and the root of our trouble, because we are in a bondage to them, at the very least at an emotional level or an economical one. We think that we need them to be okay, the anxiety, the anger, the terror that we feel right now is for the losing, or more likely the potential of losing, something that we think we must have to survive, something we must love. We think we need to be happy to be satisfied with, to maintain our happiness, but it's not Jesus that we're finding that happiness. It's in things. So what we must realize in the middle of our desert, or in the middle of our anxiety, or in the middle of our fear of loss, those unneeded weights are truly bringing a peace, but are actually a source of emotional and spiritual bondage, and is keeping us from being truly content, peaceful, and happy that the Bible speaks of over and over and over again. The trick is to enjoy all that is good in our life, to not even take the most trivial thing that is good for granted. Now, for me here lately, the best teacher that has brought me to my knees is loss. The losing of something, which was an unneeded weight, or is stripped away. And to the rest in the moment of the loss of whatever that unneeded weight, and let the deep work of God inside you. It's sanctifying and stripping you of everything that is not based in Him. It sets you free of that bondage, whatever that is. And, because we've had the social distancing and all that stuff going on, and I've did quite a few funerals and stuff here lately, and talked to a lot of anxiety and all that, and it's people are scared, and they're not looking for that peace, and stuff like their job, or a paycheck, or they're just really unsure. They put all their faith in these things that's not Jesus. It's not about the Bible. It's not where it should be. And it's almost, we need to strip all that away, like it talks about in The Dark Night of the Soul of St. John of the Cross. That's a book I was talking about. But sometimes that needs to be stripped down so that we can finally see what we need, what is actually there. We need to be stripped and see that it's Jesus and Jesus alone. It's for His glory alone, in faith alone, by grace alone. And faith alone. It's in Scripture alone. We focus, and the world's a busy place, but a lot of we can't really make the excuse that we ain't got time, because some of us aren't working at all. Like I just recently started going back to work, so. But I had downtime. There was no reason why I couldn't read and all that. But what I'm saying is it strips you of so much stuff. Being in Jesus was stripped of everything. He was hungry. He was fasting for it, and the devil was speaking. He was trying to hit him with all them physical things that men would want, and Jesus used Scripture back, and that's this word right here. This is our bread. This is our life. This sustains us. We're just a vapor, and then we're gone, and that's what that stripping away is seeing. That yes, I'm speaking on an electronic device, and you can get too wrapped up in them. I know I do sometimes, but I also preach on things that I wouldn't speak on it if it wasn't my a problem with me too. I'm always preaching to me. Don't ever forget that. So I just had that on my mind. I've been reading that book and stuff, and it was just something that I was thinking about a desert and being stripped away because of people we're not able to see, and we're distanced from people, and things that we took for granted or whatever, and seemed trivial at that time isn't so much now. It's important now to us, and we can actually see that. Well, I don't really need that. I didn't really need that because I've not had that for a while. I'm good. And I've got this extra time to do this and read and stay in the Word and to meditate and do things to help people out or whatever's going on, So I just want to say that I love you. I'm praying for you all, and God bless you all, and I will see you next time.